Hello, moviegoers! Welcome to another episode of CritiCarter, the show where I turn you into a cinephile. This weekend, I saw the new film, WomaninBlack, directed by James Watkins, written by Jane Goldman, and starring Daniel Radcliffe, Ciaran Hinds, and McTeer. In this film, a lawyer from London gets more than he bargained for when he finds out that the house of the late woman whose will he's investigating is haunted. In this film, a lawyer from London gets more than he bargained for when he finds out that the house of the late woman whose will he's looking after is haunted. I really feel terrible saying this, but this is not a good movie. I really wanted to like this movie. I wanted to go into this movie and say, okay, Dan Radcliffe is going to be a great actor for the rest of his days in the movie business. And he's going to make a name for himself as being something besides the kid who played Harry Potter for 10 years. He hasn't started that yet, because this role is not distanced enough from Harry Potter to show his true qualities as an actor. You've got a scene with his character asleep on the train, and he gets up, he's awoken by, some mysterious noise. He's reflected in the window. We all saw that scene, I don't know how many times over the course of the series. And this really, I was willing to say, okay, maybe these are coincidences, but the point when you have Dan Radcliffe's character walking out of what seems to be a closet under the stairs, I was like, okay, this can't be a coincidence. They've got to be angling for Harry Potter here. And honestly, I was very proud of the film because I was like, okay, your poster does not contain Dan Radcliffe, which means maybe you're not banking off the fact that, hey, all the little fangirls who love him, looking at him in Harry Potter, will come see this movie. And there is something near the end. Actually, it is the end. It's the very last scene. Don't want to say too much about it for, spoiler reasons, but it was almost exactly the same as a scene in the second Deathly Hallows movie. If you still go out and see WomaninBlack after watching my review, or you've already seen it and you're looking to my channel to make a comparison between the two, you'll know exactly what I mean. I also think Dan Radcliffe was miscast to begin with. This film asks us to believe that he has a 4-year-old son, and he doesn't really look significantly older than he did in Harry Potter. I mean, this is basically, okay, let's take how Dan Radcliffe looked as 17-year-old Harry Potter and give him, let him stop shaving for a few days. It's Harry Potter with, a couple of days of 5 o'clock shadow. That's all it is. The movie does take place a little bit, early 20th century, so you could maybe say, they started families younger back then, but I don't know. Not baby age for me. It is a horror movie at its most basic, but it is the, typical musical flourish coupled with things jumping out at you on screen. Not jumping out at you on screen like it's 3D, but just jumping out, quick cuts to things you weren't expecting to see, boom, kind of stuff. It does that, and there were quite a few of those moments that got me, see ghostly images of the woman screaming out of nowhere, that kind of thing. It is intense at parts. However, I gotta say the script leaves a lot to be desired. Like I said, this was written by Jane Goldman. Jane Goldman, who did Kick-Ass and X-Men First Class and The Debt, which are all 3 very good movies in my opinion, and all very well written. There's nothing really that sets this movie out from any, here's a person coming into the countryside who's unfamiliar with it, and there's a big old house that nobody really talks about, but everyone just kind of stays away from it. There's one scene specifically that really bothered me. You got Ciaran Hinds and Dan Radcliffe driving in the car, right? Driving. Ciaran Hinds says to Dan Radcliffe's character, "When you meet my wife, don't mention children. It makes her very uncomfortable." Pretty much the first words out of Jenna McTeer's mouth when she meets Dan Radcliffe's character is, "Has he told you about our son?" What's the point in spending the scene before setting up the fact that she's uncomfortable when people bring up the topic of her children, and then having her immediately bring up her children? Does that make any sense to anyone? And this might have been a mistake that happened on set versus something in the script specifically, but there's a sequence when Dan Radcliffe's character is walking around the big house in the country, and he's got a hatchet in one hand and a candle in the other, and he's, being very intimidating with his big old hatchet. He's like, "Oh, all you mysterious noises, I'm gonna come get you!" And then, it ends up being nothing at that point in the movie. The immediate next scene, no time has passed, the hatchet's just gone all of a sudden. He's still running around the house trying to intimidate the scary noises that he's hearing. And all of a sudden he just doesn't have the hatchet. I'm like, what? Did you put it down and cut that scene out of the movie for whatever reason? If you're gonna run around and have a hatchet, keep the hatchet. Why would you give up the hatchet if you're still having the same problems with this house that you had before? Last, but certainly not least, there's lots of fog in the movie. And I understand, yeah, oh, it's London, you want to set the scene, but you don't need all that fog. You remember Sherlock Holmes, right? Was there fog in Sherlock Holmes? I don't remember not being able to see, somebody a foot away in Sherlock Holmes because of all the fog. It starts out and you have Dan Radcliffe and he's seeing his son off in the beginning. That 4-year-old son that shouldn't really be going on. He's seeing his son off in the beginning, and you literally can't see anyone else in that scene. You got him and his son, and then like the son's nanny, and they're all on this plane, and then literally everything else in the scene is just shrouded by fog. Why? What's the point? You're not even at the point where the scary stuff's supposed to be happening yet. Why have everything immersed in fog? So yeah, okay, at the end of the day, it does its job. It has scary moments, but at what cost? You've got your lead actor not really branching out from the work he's done in the past. Got a lot of writing things that don't really make sense. You could argue that your lead actor was miscast. Take a pass on this one. I give it a very slight 1 out of 5 curious British lawyers. You can see last week's review of A Dangerous Method up over here, as always. Next week, like I've been saying for the past month, I'm gonna try and see Shame, but if it doesn't come out, it doesn't come out. And if I don't see Shame, I'll be seeing the new film Safe House, and that review will be up over here. You guys know, by now. I mean, if you're not new, you know where to find them. I just want to say, in regards to what's coming out next week, don't go see Star Wars. George Lucas has taken enough of our money and made enough ridiculous changes to the franchise, and, the whole prequel thing, the fact that they exist. Don't bother go see Star Wars in 3D. Don't see Star Wars in 3D, and in April, don't see Titanic in 3D either. Please. Make sure to give me a big old thumbs up if you like this video, and favorite it. That's always nice. Subscribe to the channel. Fade to black.